He was 5 seconds away from destroying the reputation of New York's most exclusive restaurant. Oscar Al-Khalifa, a man whose net worth rivals the GDP of small countries, was standing up, napkin thrown, screaming in a language he was certain no one in that room understood. He thought he was surrounded by ignorant Americans. He thought his secrets were safe. But he didn't see the waitress in the corner. He didn't know that the woman clearing the table next to him wasn't just listening. She was analyzing. And when she opened her mouth, she didn't just save her job. She changed history. This is the true story of how a spilled glass of water led to the biggest corporate takedown of the decade. The air inside the Obsidian, Manhattan's most unlisted and overpriced dining establishment, was usually kept at a crisp 68 degrees. But tonight, near table 1, the temperature seemed to be rising by the second. Camilla Miller adjusted her apron, hiding the tremor in her hands. She was 32, overqualified, underpaid, and currently invisible. That was the job. At the Obsidian, you weren't a person. You were a ghost who delivered Wagyu beef and refilled crystal flutes of Dom Perignon. "I asked for the corner," the man at table 1 hissed. His voice was low, vibrating with a dangerous kind of calm that usually preceded a storm. "Preston, explain to me why I am sitting in the center of the room like a zoo exhibit." Preston, the floor manager who usually carried himself with the arrogance of a minor royal, looked like he was about to weep. "Mr. Al-Khalifa, I assure you, the corner booth had a structural issue with the lighting." "Lies," the man cut him off. This was Oscar Al-Khalifa. Even Camilla, who tried to avoid the news, knew the face. He was the CEO of Khalifa Dynamics, a conglomerate that owned shipping lines, tech firms, and half the skyline of Dubai. He was young for a tycoon, maybe late 30s, with sharp features and eyes that looked like they could cut glass. He wasn't just rich. He was powerful in a way that made politicians nervous. Tonight, he was accompanied by 2 men in suits who looked less like business partners and more like sharks in human skin, and a younger woman who was scrolling on her phone, looking bored. "I am leaving," Oscar announced, standing up. The scraping of his chair against the marble floor silenced the entire section. "Sir, please," Preston begged, his hands fluttering. "Chef Ramsay has prepared the tasting menu specifically for—" "I do not care about your chef," Oscar snapped. He turned to his associates, his face flushing with a rage he had been suppressing. He switched languages instantly, assuming the veil of privacy that a foreign tongue provides in a Western country. He spoke in Gulf Arabic, specifically a sharp, fast dialect native to the UAE, laced with slang that you wouldn't find in a textbook. "These people are incompetent cattle," Oscar growled to the man on his right. "I told Karim to secure the private room. If this is how they handle a simple dinner reservation, how can I trust them with the merger? The Americans are sloppy. They smile while they pick your pocket." The associate nodded nervously. "Sir, please, the camera's outside." "Let them film," Oscar shouted, still in Arabic, his voice booming off the vaulted ceiling. "I am surrounded by idiots and thieves. Even my own brother Karim sends me to this garbage dump. If that contract isn't signed by midnight, I will burn this city's reputation to the ground." He grabbed his napkin and threw it onto the table. It knocked over a half-full glass of water, which cascaded over the edge of the table, dripping onto the pristine Italian leather shoes of the associate. The restaurant froze. Forks paused halfway to mouths. This was the moment of impact. A billionaire having a meltdown. Preston was paralyzed. The associate was dabbing his shoe frantically. Oscar turned to storm out, his path taking him directly past Camilla, who was holding a tray of espresso martinis. He didn't even look at her. To him, she was furniture. He moved to shove past her, muttering in Arabic, "Move out of the way, you useless girl." It was the useless that did it. Camilla didn't move. She planted her feet. She didn't look down. She looked up, directly into his dark, furious eyes. And then she spoke. She didn't speak in the polite, deferential English required of her station. She spoke in flawless, rhythmic Arabic, matching his dialect perfectly, down to the inflection of the vowels. "If you leave now, Saidi," she said, her voice clear and cutting through the silence, "you prove them right. Only a man who fears the deal runs away because of a bad table." The silence that followed was heavier than the one before. It wasn't just quiet, it was a vacuum. Oscar stopped. His body went rigid. He slowly turned his head back to her, as if he couldn't believe what his ears had just processed. For 10 seconds, the only sound in the obsidian was the hum of the HVAC system. Oscar Al-Khalifa looked at Camilla Miller, really looked at her. He saw the frayed hem of her uniform, the tired lines around her eyes, the messy bun held up by a cheap clip. She was the antithesis of his world. "What did you say?" he asked, switching back to English, though his voice was a whisper now. Camilla didn't back down. She couldn't. The adrenaline had already spiked, and the old instincts, the ones she had buried 3 years ago, were surfacing. "I said," she repeated in Arabic, maintaining the Khaliji dialect, "that anger is a poor negotiator. You are angry at your brother, Karim, for the booking, not at the manager. Don't punish the staff for your family's mistake." The associate with the wet shoes gasped. How dare you speak to—" Oscar held up a hand, silencing him. He took a step closer to Camilla, invading her personal space. He smelled of oud wood and expensive tobacco. "Who are you?" he demanded. "You are not Arab. You are American." "I'm Camilla," she said, switching to English. "And your water glass is dripping on the floor, Mr. Al-Khalifa. It's a slipping hazard." She pulled a cloth from her apron and knelt to wipe the puddle near his feet. It was a humble gesture, a waitress doing her job, but the power dynamic had shifted completely. He was standing over her. Yet she was the one in control of the information. "Get up," Oscar commanded. Camilla stood. "How do you know that dialect?" he asked, his eyes narrowing. "That is not University Arabic. That is street. Or military." Camilla's heart hammered against her ribs. "I lived in the region, a long time ago." "Where?" "Oman, then Dubai, then elsewhere." She kept it vague. Oscar stared at her, his mind racing. He was a man who lived on paranoia. Information was currency, and this waitress had just picked his pocket. She had heard him mention the merger. She had heard him mention Karim. She knew he was vulnerable. He looked at Preston, the manager, who was shaking like a leaf. "Preston?" Yes, Mr. Al-Khalifa." "Bring a chair," Oscar said. "Sir." "Bring a chair," Oscar shouted. "For the lady. She is joining us." The room rippled with shock. The bored woman at the table looked up, finally interested. "Oscar, you can't be serious. She's the help." "She is the only person in this room who has told me the truth in 48 hours, Oscar snapped. He looked at Camilla. "Sit." Camilla hesitated. This was dangerous. She needed this job. She had rent to pay and medical bills for her mother in Queens, but she also knew men like Oscar. If she refused, he would make a scene. If she accepted, she was entering the lion's den. "I'm on the clock, sir," she said professionally. "I just bought your shift," Oscar said, pulling a black American Express card from his jacket and tossing it onto the table. "I'll buy the restaurant if I have to. Sit down." Camilla sighed, handed her tray to a stunned busboy, and sat in the plush velvet chair opposite the billionaire. "Now," Oscar said, leaning forward, his dark eyes locking onto hers. "Tell me, Camilla, what else did you hear?" I heard enough, she said quietly, dropping her voice so only the table could hear. I heard that you don't trust the merger. And I heard you say your brother set this up. But you're wrong about one thing. Oscar raised an eyebrow. And what is that? Karim didn't just mess up the reservation, Camilla said, her voice steady. When you were shouting, your phone screen lit up. I saw the text notification. It wasn't from Karim. Oscar froze. What did you see? It was Arabic text, Camilla said, from a contact saved as the Falcon. It said, "Delay him at the restaurant. The files are almost copied." Oscar's face went pale. The blood drained from his cheeks. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. He unlocked it, scrolling frantically. "There is no message," he whispered. "It's gone." "They used a flash message," Camilla said, recognizing the tech. "Class 0 SMS. It disappears after reading, or after a set time. Someone is hacking you, Mr. Al-Khalifa. Right now." The atmosphere at the table shifted from social awkwardness to high-stakes terror in the span of a heartbeat. Oscar looked at his phone, then at his associates. "Check the server logs. Now." The two men in suits scrambled, pulling out tablets and laptops, tethering to their encrypted hotspots. The bored woman, whose name turned out to be Jessica Van Doren, a socialite acting as a PR buffer, looked confused. "Oscar, is she crazy? Who is the Falcon?" Oscar ignored her. He was staring at Camilla. "You read a Class 0 message upside down, in Arabic, in the split second my phone was on the table?" "I read fast," Camilla said, "and I know what to look for." "You are not a waitress," Oscar said, his voice dropping to a growl. "Who do you work for? CIA? MI6? Corporate espionage?" "I work for the Obsidian," Camilla said, her voice hard. "And before that, I worked for the US Army. Interpretation and Translation Corps, 101st Airborne. I spent 4 years in the sandbox listening to radio chatter and translating interrogations. I know when someone is lying, and I know when someone is being set up." She leaned in. "Look, Mr. Al-Khalifa, I don't care about your billions, but I hate bullies, and I hate traitors. Someone is stalling you here. They wanted you to make a scene. They wanted you to storm out and cause a distraction while they raided your digital vaults." One of the associates, a man named Victor, looked up from his laptop, sweat beading on his forehead. "Sir, I can't access the primary data room for the Zenith merger. The password has been changed." Oscar slammed his fist on the table. The cutlery rattled. "Karim!" he hissed. "My own brother." "Maybe," Camilla said. "Or maybe Karim is being played too." Oscar looked at her, calculating. He was a man of logic, but he was also a man of instinct. His instinct told him this woman was dangerous, but currently she was the only weapon he had. "Victor!" Oscar barked. "How long to break back in?" "Hours," Victor said. "If they've locked us out of the Zenith mainframes, the deal is dead. The signing is tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. If we don't have the due diligence files, we can't sign. The stock will tank." Oscar ran a hand through his hair. He looked defeated. For the first time, the billionaire looked like a lost child. "I need to go to the server farm," Oscar said. "Physically, in Jersey." "They'll be watching you," Camilla warned. "If the Falcon is watching your phone, they know your location. If you leave in that Rolls-Royce, they'll know." Oscar looked at her. "So what do you suggest, Miss Miller? Since you seem to be running my security detail now." Camilla looked around the restaurant. She saw the kitchen doors swinging open. She saw the back exit sign. "You need to disappear," she said. "You need to stop being Oscar Al-Khalifa, the billionaire, for 2 hours. You need to get to Jersey without a tail." "And how do I do that?" Camilla stood up and untied her apron. She tossed it onto the table, right next to his black card. "You take my car," she said, "and I drive." Oscar scoffed. "Your car? I don't set foot in anything less than—" "It's a 2014 Honda Civic with a dent in the bumper," Camilla cut him off. "No GPS tracker, no OnStar, and it blends in with everything. Do you want to save your company, or do you want to be comfortable?" The table fell silent again. The two bodyguards looked at Oscar, ready to tackle Camilla if he gave the signal. Jessica looked horrified at the mention of a Honda. Oscar looked at the apron on the table. Then he looked at his phone, which was currently a useless brick of compromised technology. He stood up. He buttoned his jacket. "Victor, stay here. Eat the dinner. Pay the bill. Make it look like I'm in the bathroom or taking a call. Jessica, smile at the paparazzi outside." "Where are you going?" Jessica asked. "I'm going for a ride," Oscar said. He turned to Camilla. "Lead the way, Miss Miller. But if you are lying to me, my security team will find you. And there is no hole on this earth deep enough to hide from me." "Save the threats for the board meeting," Camilla said, turning toward the kitchen. "Follow me, through the service entrance." The service exit of the Obsidian smelled of stale grease and rain. It was a jarring transition from the scent of truffles and oud inside the dining room. Camilla moved quickly, her non-slip shoes splashing through puddles, with a billionaire in a $5,000 custom suit trailing behind her like a lost puppy. "This is insane," Oscar muttered, checking his Rolex. "My security team will have a heart attack." "Your security team let a hostile signal compromise your phone," Camilla retorted, unlocking her 2014 silver Honda Civic. "Get in. Watch out for the passenger door handle. You have to jiggle it." Oscar stared at the car. It was humble, to put it politely. There was a dent in the rear bumper from a parking lot, hit and run in Queens, and the back seat was filled with gym clothes and textbooks. "I am Oscar Al-Khalifa," he said, as if reminding the universe of a mistake. "I own a fleet of Bugattis." "Congratulations," Camilla said, starting the engine. It sputtered, then roared to life with a rattle. "Right now you're a fugitive in a Honda. Buckle up." Oscar gingerly sat in the passenger seat, his knees pressed against the glove compartment. He looked around the interior with a mix of fascination and horror. A pine tree air freshener dangled from the mirror. A half-empty coffee cup sat in the holder. Camilla pulled out into the alley, checking her mirrors. She didn't turn on her headlights until they hit the main street, blending instantly into the flow of yellow taxis and delivery trucks. "Where is the facility?" she asked. "Secaucus," Oscar said. "A private data center disguised as a logistics warehouse, Fortress Archive Solutions. If we can get to the physical terminal, I can override the remote lockout using my biometric retina scan. It's hardwired. It cannot be hacked remotely. Secaucus, Jersey. 40 minutes with traffic," Camilla calculated. "Okay, talk to me while I drive. Why is this merger so important that someone is using military-grade hacking to stop it?" Oscar looked out the window at the blurred lights of Manhattan. The rain was picking up, drumming rhythmically on the roof. "Do you know what Khalifa Dynamics does, Camilla?" "You build skyscrapers. You ship oil." "That is what my father did," Oscar corrected. "That is the past. The Zenith merger is about the future. Zenith has developed a hydrogen cell battery that could make fossil fuels obsolete in the shipping industry. My family, the older generation, they hate it. It threatens the oil revenue. But I know the oil will run out. I am trying to pivot the company before we die out." "So your brother Karim wants to stop it?" "Karim is traditional," Oscar sighed. "He thinks I am destroying our heritage. He wants to embarrass me, make me look incompetent, so the board votes me out and cancels the deal. If I don't sign those papers tomorrow at 9 mid-AM, The deal expires. Zenith goes to our competitors. And I am finished. Camilla glanced at him. Under the passing streetlights, he didn't look like a tyrant. He looked like a man carrying the weight of an empire on his shoulders. You mentioned the Falcon, Camilla said, merging onto the Lincoln Tunnel approach. That's not a corporate nickname. That sounds like a handle. A mercenary handle. I don't know who it is, Oscar admitted. But that text... Delay him. It means someone knew I was at the restaurant. Someone knew I was angry. They played me. They knew your psychology, Camilla noted. They knew you'd make a scene. Who knows you that well? Oscar went silent. The question hung in the air, heavy and uncomfortable. Only my family, he whispered. And my fiancé. Camilla's grip tightened on the steering wheel. You have a fiancé? Arranged, Oscar said quickly. Layla. She is complicated. She is the daughter of my father's business rival. The marriage is supposed to unite our fleets. Does she want the merger? She hates it, Oscar said. She thinks I spend too much time in New York. She wants me back in Dubai. As they entered the Lincoln Tunnel, the radio signal cut out, leaving them in the static-filled hum of the underwater tube. We have a problem, Camilla said, her voice dropping an octave. What? Oscar looked around. Traffic is moving. Look in the side mirror, she instructed. 3 cars back. Black SUV, Chevy Suburban, tinted windows, no front license plate. It's New York, Oscar said. There are 1 million black SUVs. It's been behind us since 34th Street, Camilla said, her eyes narrowing. It changed lanes when I changed lanes. It slowed down when I slowed down. And it's not using a turn signal. She shifted gears. The Honda whined in protest. Who are they? Oscar asked, panic creeping into his voice. I don't know, Camilla said, her face setting into a mask of concentration. But they aren't paparazzi. Paparazzi drive fast and aggressive. These guys are driving tactically. They're keeping distance to avoid being spotted. What do we do? Camilla Miller, the waitress who usually worried about tips and spilling soup, felt a familiar cold calm wash over her. It was the same calm she felt in the dusty streets of Kandahar. Hold on, she said. I'm going to see if they want to play. They burst out of the tunnel and onto the New Jersey Turnpike. The rain was torrential now, slashing sideways across the highway. Camilla slammed on the accelerator. The Honda Civic, pushing 80 miles per hour, began to shake. You're going to kill us in a Honda, Oscar shouted, gripping the oh shit handle above the door. Watch the SUV, Camilla commanded. As she sped up, the black Suburban matched her speed effortlessly. Its massive engine roared, closing the gap. They're speeding up, Oscar confirmed. They are coming right for us. Okay, they're hostile, Camilla said. Get down. What? Get your head down. Oscar ducked just as the SUV surged forward, pulling alongside them. The window rolled down. A man in a ski mask leaned out, holding something heavy and metallic. It wasn't a gun. It was a signal jammer, a black box with antennas aimed right at the car. They're trying to kill the car's electronics, Camilla realized. They want to disable us on the highway. She jerked the wheel to the right, cutting across 3 lanes of traffic. Horns blared. A semi-truck locked its brakes, tires screeching on the wet asphalt, creating a wall of noise behind them. The SUV swerved to follow, but the semi-truck blocked its path for a crucial few seconds. Where did you learn to drive like this? Oscar yelled, his face pale. Waitressing school? Military convoy training, Camilla gritted out, eyes scanning the road ahead. Defensive driving for VIP extraction. I drove generals through war zones, Oscar. A New Jersey highway is a vacation. She took an exit ramp at 60 miles per hour. The tires squealed, struggling for grip. They skidded slightly, hydroplaning, but Camilla corrected the steering with a surgeon's precision, catching the traction just before they hit the guardrail. They shot down a dark service road, lined with industrial warehouses and marshes. "They're still coming," Oscar said, looking back. The headlights of the SUV were visible in the distance, cutting through the rain. "I can't outrun a V8 engine in this thing," Camilla said. "We have to outsmart them." She spotted a cluster of shipping containers in a yard to the left. The gate was chain link, but it was slightly ajar. "Brace yourself," she warned. She killed the headlights. The world went pitch black. "Are you crazy?" Oscar screamed. Camilla drove blind for 3 seconds, relying on her memory of the road shape. She yanked the wheel left, drifting the car through the open gate of the shipping yard. She slammed on the brakes, sliding behind a stack of rusted red containers. "Silence," she hissed. "Don't move. Don't breathe." They sat in the darkness, the only sound the rain hammering on the roof and the ticking of the cooling engine. A moment later, the roar of the SUV passed by on the main road. It slowed down, pausing near the gate, then revved up and sped away, thinking the Honda had continued down the service road. Oscar let out a breath he had been holding for a minute. He slumped back in the seat, sweating profusely. "You," he stammered. "You are—" "Just a waitress," Camilla finished for him. She turned to look at him, her silhouette barely visible in the dark. "You okay?" "I have nearly been killed 3 times tonight," Oscar said, a shaky laugh escaping him. "And I am sitting in a Honda Civic with a woman I met an hour ago. I have never felt more alive." He looked at her, really seeing her. In the dim light, the uniform was gone. He saw the strength in her jaw, the intelligence in her eyes. "Why?" he asked. "Why are you helping me? You could have just walked away." Camilla looked out the windshield at the rain. "My brother," she said softly. "Your brother. He was in the unit with me. He didn't make it back." She paused, swallowing the lump in her throat. "He used to say that bad things happen when good people do nothing. I saw you being bullied, Oscar. I saw a man being cornered. It doesn't matter that you're a billionaire and I'm nobody. Right is right." Oscar fell silent. He reached out, hesitating, then placed his hand on her shoulder. It was a tentative, respectful touch. "You are not a nobody, Camilla Miller," he said seriously. "You are the most formidable person I have met in New York. If we survive this night, I will owe you a debt I cannot repay with money." "Let's focus on surviving first," Camilla said, turning the ignition key. "We're close to Secaucus, but we can't take the main roads anymore. I'm taking the back way." Fortress Archive Solutions was a brutalist block of concrete sitting in the middle of a swamp. It had no windows, only ventilation shafts and security cameras. Camilla parked the car a half-mile away, hidden in the tall reeds of the marshland. They walked the rest of the way in the rain. Oscar's Italian suit was ruined, his shoes caked in mud. He didn't complain once. "There's a guard shack," Camilla whispered, as they crouched behind a dumpster near the perimeter fence. 2 guards, armed. "I know the protocol," Oscar said. "This is my facility. I pay them." "Unless they've been paid more by someone else," Camilla pointed out. "The people chasing us knew where we were going. We have to assume the facility is compromised." "I have a key card for the executive entrance," Oscar said, patting his pocket. "Around the back. Lead the way." They skirted the perimeter, avoiding the floodlights. Oscar moved with surprising agility. They reached a steel door at the rear of the building. Oscar swiped a black card. The reader flashed red. "Access denied," the electronic voice stated. "Impossible," Oscar hissed. "This is the master key." He swiped again. Red. "They locked you out," Camilla said. "They really are inside." "The biometric scanner is inside," Oscar said, panic rising. "If I can just get to the server room. The scanner overrides all electronic locks. It's a fail-safe. Step back, Camilla said. She looked at the electronic lock. She pulled a bobby pin from her hair and a small multi-tool from her pocket. You are going to pick a digital lock? Oscar asked incredulously. No, Camilla said. I'm going to short the circuit. She pried the faceplate off the reader. With a quick movement, she crossed 2 wires. Sparks flew. The door clicked and popped open. Hardware failure defaults to open for fire safety regulations, Camilla explained, putting her tools away. Standard code. They slipped inside. The hallway was cool and hummed with the sound of thousands of server fans. It was a labyrinth of blue LED lights and glass corridors. Server room Alpha is on the 3rd sub-level, Oscar whispered. They moved silently, descending the stairwell. When they reached the bottom, they saw it, the glass wall of the main server room. Inside, rows of black towers blinked frantically, but there was someone in there. A man was standing at the main console. He was wearing a technician's uniform, but he moved with the arrogance of ownership. He was typing furiously. Oscar froze. He grabbed Camilla's arm, his grip bruising. "That's not a hacker," Oscar whispered, his voice trembling with betrayal. "Who is it?" "That is Julian Thorne," Oscar said. "My chief financial officer. My best friend since Oxford." Camilla stared at the man. Julian Thorne, the man responsible for the company's money. "He's deleting the files," Camilla realized. "Look at the screens. Purging data, 60% complete." "He's not working for my brother," Oscar realized, the horror dawning on him. "Karim was a distraction. Karim is loud and stupid. Julian is the one who benefits. If the merger fails, the stock drops. He shorts the stock. He makes billions while the company burns. We have to stop him," Camilla said. "He has a gun on the desk." "I'm going in," Oscar said, stepping forward. "Wait," Camilla grabbed him. "He'll shoot you." "He won't," Oscar said, buttoning his wet jacket, regaining his composure. "Because he needs my fingerprint to authorize the final deletion. He can purge the cache, but to wipe the core drive, he needs the CEO." "He'll force you," Camilla warned. "Let him try," Oscar said. His eyes were cold now. The scared fugitive was gone. The billionaire was back. Oscar pushed open the doors to the server room. "Julian!" His voice boomed, echoing off the metal racks. Julian Thorne spun around, knocking over his coffee. He reached for the gun, but stopped when he saw it was Oscar. "Oscar?" Julian looked stunned. You're supposed to be in Manhattan. The team said they lost you." "The team?" Oscar walked closer, hands raised but steady. "You mean the mercenaries you hired to run me off the road?" "The Falcon?" Julian laughed, a nervous, jagged sound. He picked up the gun, leveling it at Oscar. "The Falcon isn't me, Oscar. It's the name of the operation. Operation Falcon. Taking down the bird of prey." "Why?" Oscar asked. "We built this company together." "You are building a charity," Julian shouted. "Clean energy? Hydrogen? There's no margin in that for 10 years. I have debts, Oscar. Massive debts. I need the payout from the short sell. I need this company to fail tonight." "I won't let you," Oscar said, stepping closer. "Stay back." Julian cocked the gun. "I need your fingerprint, Oscar. Walk over here. Place your hand on the scanner. Authorize the wipe, or I will shoot you and take your hand anyway." Oscar stopped. He was 5 feet away. The gun was pointed at his chest. From the shadows of the doorway behind Oscar, Camilla watched. She calculated the distance. 20 feet. Too far to rush him. She looked around. She saw the fire suppression system control panel on the wall next to her. Halon gas. It sucks the oxygen out of the room to kill fires without damaging electronics. It also knocks people out in seconds if they don't have a mask. But if she pulled it, Oscar would go down too. She caught Oscar's eye. He looked at her, just a flicker of a glance. He gave a microscopic nod. He knew she was there. Camilla took a deep breath. She put her hand on the lever. "Do it, Julian," Oscar said, staring down the barrel of the gun. "Shoot me, but know this. If you pull that trigger, you destroy the only thing that can save you." "Shut up!" Julian screamed. Camilla pulled the lever. Clang! A siren wailed. A massive hiss filled the room as white gas exploded from the ceiling vents. "What the—" Julian turned, distracted by the noise. That was the split second Camilla needed. She didn't run. She launched herself. She tackled Oscar, driving him to the floor, covering his face with her apron, which she had kept in her pocket, pressing it tight over his nose and mouth. "Hold your breath!" she screamed. Julian, standing up, gasped in shock, inhaling a lungful of the halon mix. He coughed, his eyes rolling back. He stumbled, the gun firing wildly into the ceiling, and collapsed onto the floor. The room filled with white fog. The hiss of the halon gas was the loudest sound in the world. It wasn't a whoosh of air. It was a violent, pressurized scream that signaled the death of oxygen in the room. Camilla's lungs seized instantly. It felt less like holding her breath and more like her chest was being crushed by a hydraulic press. She was on the floor, the cold metal grating biting into her knees. She had one hand clamped over Oscar's nose and mouth with the fabric of her apron, and with her other hand, she was frantically scrabbling for purchase on Julian's belt. She had to move 2 grown men. Dead weight. "Move!" she screamed internally. "Move, or you all die in this box!" She dug the heels of her non-slip waitress shoes into the floor. Her vision was already tunneling, black vignettes creeping in from the corners of her eyes. She heaved backward. Oscar, dazed but conscious, kicked his legs, trying to help, trying to scrabble backward like a crab. They moved an inch, then a foot. Julian was the problem. He was unconscious, a heavy sack of traitorous flesh. Camilla hooked her arm under his armpit, her muscles screaming, and yanked. They tumbled over the threshold into the corridor. Camilla didn't stop. She kicked out wildly with her leg, her foot connecting with the heavy steel door. It swung shut with a deafening, hermetic thud, sealing the white death fog inside the server room. For a long minute, there was no sound in the hallway, except the desperate, jagged tearing of air entering lungs. Camilla rolled onto her back, staring at the fluorescent lights overhead. They were spinning. She coughed, a deep, racking hack that tasted of chemicals and copper. Next to her, Oscar was doubled over, retching dryly. "You!" Oscar gasped, wiping a streak of soot from his face. He looked at her, his eyes red-rimmed and wide. "You stayed. I'm stupid that way," Camilla wheezed, sitting up and leaning her head against the cool concrete wall. A groan came from the floor. Julian Thorne was waking up. He rolled over, clutching his head, his face a mask of confusion that quickly morphed into horror as he saw the closed server room door. "No," Julian whispered. He tried to stand, but stumbled, his legs like jelly. "No, the wipe! It didn't finish." He looked at the glass panel of the door. Through the swirling white mist inside, the red LED lights of the server racks were still visible, blinking in a suspended state. Error. Authorization interrupted. Deletion paused at 62%. Julian turned on them, his face twisting into a snarl of pure desperation. "You idiots! You have no idea what you've done. You think you saved the company? You just bankrupt us." "I saved the company from a parasite," Oscar said. He stood up. He was swaying, his suit ruined, his hair matted with sweat, but the authority in his voice was terrifying. He walked over to Julian. Julian flinched, expecting a hit. Oscar didn't hit him. He reached into Julian's pocket, pulled out his phone, and tossed it to Camilla. "Record this," Oscar commanded. Camilla caught the phone, unlocked it. No passcode, typical arrogant executive, and hit record. "Tell me," Oscar said, stepping into Julian's personal space. "Tell me exactly who promised you the money to short the stock. Tell me, Julian, or I swear on my father's grave, I will leave you here for the police to find in the swamp." Julian looked at the camera, then at Oscar. He crumbled. The arrogance evaporated, leaving only a small, scared man. "It was a consortium, based in Zurich. They approached me 6 months ago. They knew the hydrogen deal was risky. They said if I could ensure the merger failed, the stock would dip below 40. We'd make 300 million. And my brother?" Oscar asked, his voice shaking slightly. "Was Karim part of it?" Julian looked down. "Karim is a fool, Oscar. He didn't know about the short sell. He just wanted to stop the green nonsense to save his pride. I used him. I used him to distract you." Oscar closed his eyes for a second, a mixture of pain and relief washing over him. His brother was an idiot, but not a thief. "That's enough," Oscar said. He looked at the door. "We have a problem. The system is paused. It will auto-resume the deletion if the admin lockout isn't engaged manually." Camilla looked at the timestamp on the panel. "You have 2 minutes before the script overrides the pause." "The biometric scanner is inside," Oscar said, looking at the gas-filled room. "You can't go back in there," Camilla said, standing up. "The oxygen levels are 0. The halon hasn't dissipated." "It's 10 steps to the desk," Oscar calculated. 10 steps, 5 seconds to scan, 10 steps back. I can hold my breath for 30 seconds. "If you stumble, you don't come out," Camilla warned. "If I don't go in, the merger dies and Julian wins," Oscar said. He looked at her. "Watch the door." He didn't wait for her permission. He took 3 massive, gulping breaths, filling his chest to its absolute limit. He nodded once, opened the door, and vanished into the white fog. Camilla slammed the door behind him to keep the gas from leaking out, pressing her face against the small, reinforced glass window. She couldn't see him. The fog was too thick. 1 Mississippi. 2 Mississippi. She saw a shadow move near the central console. 3 Mississippi. 4. Nothing happened. He should be at the desk. 5, 6, 7. Panic flared in her chest. Had he tripped? Had he inhaled? Then, a piercing green light cut through the fog. The scanner. It chirped, a high-pitched electronic confirmation that echoed even through the glass. Confirmed. Now he just had to get back. 8. 9. A hand slapped against the glass of the door. Camilla threw the handle down and hauled the door open. Oscar practically fell out, collapsing into her arms. He dragged them both to the floor, coughing violently, his body convulsing as it fought to expel the microscopic traces of gas he had absorbed. "Locked," he wheezed, a wild grin breaking through the agony on his face. "It's locked down." Camilla held him, brushing the hair back from his forehead. "You crazy son of a bitch," she whispered. "You actually did it." The drive back to Manhattan was a blur of exhaustion and silent victory. The rain had stopped, leaving the world washed clean and glistening under the streetlights. They left Julian, zip-tied to a pipe, in the guard shack. Camilla had found a stash of cable ties in the trunk of her Honda and called the anonymous tip line for the FBI on the way out. Now, on the George Washington Bridge, the sun was just beginning to crack the horizon. The sky was a bruised purple, bleeding into gold. Oscar sat in the passenger seat of the Honda Civic, staring out at the skyline. He looked like a wreck. His $5,000 suit was stiff with dried mud. One of his shoes was missing a heel, but he seemed lighter than he had been all night. I have spent my whole life in cars that cost more than houses, Oscar said, quietly, watching the city draw closer. But I have never enjoyed a ride as much as this one. It's the suspension, Camilla joked, though her voice was tired. It really lets you feel the road. No, Oscar turned to look at her. It is the company. You drive with purpose, Camilla. Most people just steer. You drive. My brother taught me, she said, her eyes on the road. He said the car goes where your eyes go. If you look at the wall, you hit the wall. If you look at the gap, you make it through. We made it through the gap, Oscar murmured. He checked his watch. 8:40 a.m. The board meeting starts in 20 minutes. I need to get to Midtown. You look like a swamp monster, Camilla noted. They won't even let you in the building. Let them try to stop me, Oscar said, but I need you with me. Me? Camilla glanced at him. I'm just the driver, Oscar. My shift ended 12 hours ago. You are not just the driver, he said firmly. You are the only witness I have. And I do not think I can walk into that room alone. Not today. It was a rare admission of vulnerability. The titan of industry was asking the waitress for backup. Camilla sighed, changing lanes toward the exit. Fine, but if anyone asks, I'm your personal attaché. Deal. The boardroom of Khalifa Dynamics was a fortress of silence and glass, suspended 80 stories above the waking city. The air smelled of lemon polish and expensive coffee. At 8:55 a.m., the atmosphere was funereal. Karim al-Khalifa sat at the head of the long mahogany table, trying to hide his anxiety behind a mask of indifference. Around him, 12 board members checked their tablets. Dr. Albright, the Zenith CEO, was packing her briefcase. It's nearly 9 Wutuhur, Mr. al-Khalifa. We have not received the transfer of the due diligence files. The exclusivity period ends in 5 minutes. I apologize, Doctor, Karim said, spreading his hands. My brother has clearly cracked under the pressure. He is unfit to lead. We will restructure, and perhaps in a few years we can revisit. There will be no restructuring, a voice boomed from the doorway. The double doors swung open, not with a polite click, but with a heavy, forceful shove. The room gasped. Oscar al-Khalifa stood there. He looked terrifying. The mud on his suit had dried into a grey crust. His shirt was torn at the collar. He smelled of burnt electronics and swamp water. But he stood with a posture that made the pristine executives in the room shrink in their chairs. And beside him stood a woman in a waitress uniform, her hair in a messy bun, her apron gone, looking at the board members with a gaze of steel. Oscar? Karim stood up, his chair scraping loudly. My God, have you lost your mind? Look at you. Sit down, Karim, Oscar said. He didn't shout. He didn't have to. The command cracked like a whip across the room. Karim sat. Oscar walked to the table. He left a trail of muddy footprints on the plush carpet. He didn't care. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the small silver hard drive. He slid it down the length of the table. It spun, hissing against the wood, and stopped perfectly in front of Dr. Albright. The files, Oscar said. Encrypted, verified, and complete. Dr. Albright looked from the drive to Oscar, her eyes wide. She plugged it into her laptop. A moment later, she nodded. It's all here. The data is intact. Impossible, Karim whispered. The system was... He caught himself. The system was what, Karim? Oscar asked, leaning his hands on the table and staring down his brother. Compromised. Sabotaged. Oscar gestured to Camilla. She stepped forward, opening the battered leather satchel she had carried from the car. She placed Julian's phone on the table and pressed play. The video of Julian, zip-tied and terrified in the hallway, played on the large screen at the end of the room. His confession echoed in the silence. The short cell, the consortium, the betrayal. The board members were frozen. Karim turned a sickly shade of grey. "Julian Thorne is currently in FBI custody," Oscar announced. "As for you, Karim," he walked slowly toward his brother. "You let your jealousy blind you," Oscar said softly, so only Karim could hear. "You were a pawn in a game you didn't even know was being played. You are removed from the board, effective immediately. Security is waiting to escort you out." Karim looked at Oscar, then at Camilla. He sneered. "You bring the help to a board meeting? This is who you rely on? A servant?" Camilla stepped forward. She didn't look like a servant. She looked like a soldier. "The help," she said in flawless, biting Arabic, "is the only reason you aren't being arrested for treason right now. Your brother saved you from prison. Show some respect, or I will show you the way out myself." Karim's jaw dropped. He looked at Oscar. Oscar just smiled. Karim stood up, gathered his things with shaking hands, and walked out of the room without a word. Oscar turned back to Dr. Albright. The clock on the wall clicked to 9:01 a.m. "The contract, Doctor?" She slid the papers toward him. Oscar took a pen, a cheap plastic Bic pen he had borrowed from Camilla's car, and signed the document. "Done," he said. "The future is ours." 2 hours later, the adrenaline had finally faded, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion and a ravenous hunger. They found a diner in Queens, far away from the Michelin stars and the paparazzi. It was a place with sticky menus and waitresses who called everyone honey. They sat in a booth by the window. Oscar was devouring a plate of eggs and hash browns, as if it were the finest meal he'd ever tasted. Camilla nursed a coffee, watching him. "You know," she said, breaking the comfortable silence, "you're going to have a hell of a time explaining the mud to your dry cleaner." "I will burn the suit," Oscar said, wiping his mouth with a paper napkin. "It is a symbol of the old me. The victim." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a white envelope. He placed it on the table between them. "Camilla," he said, his voice turning serious, "I need to talk business. I told you, Oscar, I don't want a reward. I did it because you are a good person," Oscar finished. "I know. That is why I need you." He tapped the envelope. "This is not a reward. This is an offer." Camilla frowned. She opened the envelope. Inside was a cashier's check. The number made her breath hitch. It was more zeros than she had ever seen on a piece of paper. "This is a signing bonus," Oscar said, "and a salary advance." "For what?" "I fired my entire security detail this morning," Oscar said, leaning back. "All of them. They were incompetent, or worse, compromised. I am building a new division, Khalifa Global Intelligence. Its sole purpose is to protect the energy transition, to protect the technology, the people, and the future we just signed for." He looked her in the eye. "I don't need thugs in suits, Camilla. I need intelligence. I need someone who can read a room before she enters it. Someone who speaks the language of the street and the boardroom. I need a director of operations." Camilla stared at him. "You're crazy. I'm a waitress. I serve steak." "You are a veteran of the 101st Airborne," Oscar corrected gently. "You are a warrior who has been hiding in an apron because the world told you that you were finished. I am telling you that you are just getting started." He reached out a hand. "Come work with me, Camilla. No more invisible ghost. Be the force I know you are." Camilla looked at his hand. Then she looked at her reflection in the diner window. She saw the tired woman in the uniform. But behind that reflection, she saw the spark that had been reignited last night. The spark of purpose. She looked back at Oscar. She smiled, a slow, dangerous, confident smile. She shook his hand. "I'm going to need a company car," she said, "and not a Honda." Oscar grinned. "I think we can get you an Aston Martin." The merger went through. Khalifa Dynamics became the world leader in green shipping technology. The stock soared, and the short sellers lost billions. Julian Thorne went to prison. Karim was quietly removed from the board and sent to manage a minor subsidiary in Antarctica. And Camilla Miller? She never clocked in for another shift at the Obsidian. A week later, the staff at the exclusive restaurant were gossiping before the dinner rush. "Did you hear about Camilla?" one waiter asked. "Just vanished. Didn't even pick up her last paycheck." "Probably couldn't handle the pressure," Preston the manager sniffed, adjusting his tie. "Some people are just meant to carry trays." Outside on the street, a sleek, armored black Range Rover pulled up to the curb. The back window rolled down just an inch. Inside, Camilla Miller, dressed in a tailored navy suit, watched her old workplace for a moment. She saw Preston bossing around a new busboy. She smiled, a tight, knowing smile. She tapped the driver on the shoulder. "Yalla, let's go," she said in perfect Arabic. "We have a plane to catch in Dubai." The Range Rover pulled away into the New York traffic, disappearing into the sea of lights, carrying the woman who proved that the most powerful person in the room isn't always the one sitting at the best table. Sometimes it's the one pouring the water. And that is the incredible, almost unbelievable true story of Oscar Al Khalifa and Camilla Miller. It's a reminder that you should never assume you know someone's worth based on their uniform. The most valuable intelligence often comes from the places and the people we least expect. Oscar thought he was surrounded by enemies, but his greatest ally was standing right there, refilling his water glass. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, if you love tales of underdogs, corporate intrigue, and justice being served cold, please do me a favor. Hit that like button. It really helps get these stories out there. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that heroes are everywhere. And if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We drop new, hard-hitting, true stories every week, and trust me, you do not want to miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and remember, listen closely. You never know who might be speaking your language.